Now, what do you do when now you are trying to decide, and this is something that I ask all referring attorneys. I say, what is the racial profile of this particular individual? And for those of you who are politically correct, I will tell you right now that there are many people who will not talk about racial profiling as it applies to injured victims. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you ignore the racial profiling aspect, you are doing yourself and your potential client a huge disservice. Because no matter how politically correct we are, this is taught in every CLE trial practice scenario, you always have to take that into account. So I want to know what nationality the injured victim is. I want to know what their race is. Why? Because every county in the state of New York has their own jury profile. There's a big difference between going into Bronx County compared to Rockland County, compared to Westchester, compared to Manhattan, compared to Queens and Nassau. Every single county is different. And so although it may not make an overall strategic decision, or it may not be the factor that decides whether or not to take on the case, it's still an important one and something you need to just think about. Not verbalize to anybody except the referring attorney, but it's something that you will be asked. Next thing you need to think about is, what type of witness will this particular injured victim make if they go to trial? Are they verbal? Can they communicate? Do they understand? What type of person will this make when they get up on the witness stand to be asked questions? Are they going to be likable? Likability is a huge, huge component of whether or not you may have a valid case. And if there's a question, the victim's likability can sometimes sway the jury solely on the fact that they're nice, they're kind, they're wonderful and sweet and warm and fuzzy. So again, you have to think about that. Which brings me to the next question. You've now gone through this entire process. You've asked them the key question, what do you think was done wrong and what injury did you suffer as a result of that? You've determined in your own minds that this matter may be timely. You now have an idea of who this person is, what kind of witness they're going to be, and now you have an idea of what type of case this involves. And the question you now have to ask yourself is, what do you do next? You've got all this great information. What do you do next? The answer is, now's the time for you to decide whether to refer the case out to an experienced trial attorney, or do you try and handle this on your own? And there are some attorneys who will try and handle this on their own. And again, I'll make another suggestion to you, that if you do not handle these types of cases on a daily basis, my strong recommendation is to send it out to experienced trial counsel. And the reason is, there are many, many procedural pitfalls that you are going to encounter, and you will get stuck in the mud, and it may prove impossible for you to get out of if you don't do this on a regular basis. So the better practice is to make a decision and say to the client, listen, I have an excellent attorney I want you to speak to who may be able to help. They're going to investigate and evaluate whether or not you have a case. And you can give them your thoughts about what you think based upon the knowledge that you gleaned this morning of whether or not they may have a basis and how you might be able to help them. Because now what have you done? What you've done is now you've provided them a resource, and you are now looked as the go-to resource person to help solve their other legal problems. That's why you look great, because here you are trying to help solve their legal problem that's unrelated to your area and practice of law. Okay, does that make sense?